Hey guys, hope everyone's doing well. Welcome back to another econ lesson. So what we're going to be looking at today is the role of the labor market and wages within this economic lens that we've been looking at, trying to understand what type of jobs are available, different types of jobs, salary to compensate for your labor and for your time, and to kind of give you a little bit of insight into just the job market itself and how it functions in the market. So, guys, probably the biggest thing that you're thinking about right now as graduating seniors and entering college is what do you want to study? What do you want to major in the hopes of getting a job in that field? So what you want to be really thinking about, you can see on the right-hand side of the slide, is talking about the role of utility within your degree. Your degree is really going to be deciding what makes you most marketable. So when you think about different jobs and the value associated with their jobs, I always think of it as what is the utility within that job. There's a reason why some people are making hundreds of thousands of dollars and other people are making tens of thousands of dollars. And again, it comes down to the utility. The fact that some people have skill sets that are unique. And as a result of having that unique skill set, you're able to demand more money in the market. The two examples that I selected for you, a doctor and a plumber. Now you might be thinking, saying, Donnelly, a doctor and a plumber, those two things are very different. You have to pay, hundreds of thousands of dollars and 8 to 10 years of your life going to school to become a doctor, and to be a plumber, that's a learned trade. True, but the one thing that they share in common with each other is utility. The fact that they are so useful, and the fact that not everybody has that skill set. Obviously, if I need open heart surgery, I can't just go to some random person and say, hey, I need you to cut open my heart and pump in 2 new valves and save my life. Just the same way that I'm probably not going to be able to ask some random person that if my sub pump decides to stop working and I need to replace it, I'm going to have to hire someone that has a certain skill set. And that's why those plumbers are able to walk in and say, I'm going to demand $100 just for initial consultation, and then I'm going to charge you $60 an hour for labor. That is because they have a certain skill set that you don't possess. So when you're thinking about jobs, you really want to think about utility and how much money that you can make from that. Just the same way as if you're looking at the short order cook. Now, of course, I love a good French toast and eggs and some hash browns, but I can probably find almost anybody to make me eggs, hash browns, and French toast. There's not a lot of utility there. So as a result, that person is not going to demand a lot of money in the market simply because they're replaceable. So guys, again, just to use another example of utility is think about cars. We all have them. Hopefully that when you're an adult and you're making all sorts of money, you're driving around in your nice BMW or your Mercedes, but there's still going to be a moment when you're going to have to go get your oil changed, or you're going to have to get your brakes repaired, or you're going to have something done with your car. And again, there's the magic word of utility. If you don't have the skill set to be able to sit down, jack up your car, take off your brakes, replace them, you're going to have to go somewhere. So that's why someone like an auto mechanic, again, a job that may not seem super appealing, as you're graduating high school, you might be looking at that job down the road and saying, man, this was actually a really good idea for me personally, just because it has a ton of utility. Now, some people may not be good with cars, and obviously working with cars would then be a bad option. But for some people who are more trade oriented, again, we look at the idea of utility, being able to dictate price. Because when I go and have to get my brakes changed and I'm upset about paying $2,000, or I was shocked, it cost $60 an hour. $60 an hour to get my brakes repaired. Okay, that's a crazy number. But I had to pay it because what other option did I have? So that's the beauty of utility, and that's the beauty of kind of this skill set in the market of being able to make a lot of money in jobs that perhaps may not be the most glamorous, but giving you the opportunity to make a really good living. Just like those of you that are, becoming your accountants, your doctors, your lawyers, your business entrepreneurs, etc. there's always room to be able to make money. It just depends upon your utility and skill set. So guys, when we look at the market itself, we want to make sure that we apply those principles of supply and demand into the job market itself. You want to remember that high-paying jobs that have this glamorous appeal to it, those jobs are going to be the most coveted. They're going to be the most demanded. And as a result, there's going to be the largest supply of potential workers in those fields. So you want to pay attention to that when you're thinking about this is the degree that I want to get, this is the job that I want to pursue. You really want to look into the job market and identify, is this a growing field? So as more and more people graduate college with this degree or with this skill set, and more people are demanding jobs, are there actual jobs for these people to get? Or is there simply just going to be this massive surplus of people with the same degree, with the same skill set, unemployed because simply there's not enough of those jobs in the market anymore? By no means would I be telling you not to pursue a dream job that you have, but it's something that you guys really want to make sure that you're paying attention to. I mean, this idea of surplus, there are so many college graduates that if you look at statistics, that they have a degree in something that they currently aren't doing for their profession. And unfortunately, that's a really significant hit financially. Guys, remember how much we've talked about that the biggest financial decision that you're going to make is college, that degree that you're going to get. So you really want to make sure that you're paying attention to, is there going to be this job market? You want to find a career or some type of field that there's a shortage. Because when you're in that shortage situation, you have the ability to demand. When you sit down for contract negotiations, you can demand more money, you can demand more or better retirement benefits, you can demand more days off, you can demand things because that company needs you. There's not enough of you. So they're going to pay or they're going to do things that perhaps they may not want to, but they have to because they need you as an employee. Whereas if there's a surplus, you're a dime a dozen. If you get a job but you make a demand and the company doesn't like what you're saying, they could easily replace you with somebody else because there's such high surplus in the market with people with that skill set. So again, when you're making those decisions and you're looking, guys, bigger picture, not just I want to graduate school, but what's life going to look like when I'm 22? What's life going to look like when I'm 30? What's life going to look like when I'm 40? You want to start making sure that that investment in college that you're making is going to turn around and be able to produce or make you more marketable in the job market so that you have high utility and that you have high usefulness so that you can dictate your future rather than just kind of bouncing around from job to job. So guys, obviously what's going to motivate all of us in the work is going to be how much money you're going to make from this. So what is my wage going to be? So economists break it down into a couple of different fields. So number one, we look at the idea of a professional laborer. So those are usually our college educated professionals, your doctors, engineers, web designers, shameless plug for teachers, lawyers. So people that we would consider to be white collar employment, that are going to make good salaries from their jobs. The next that we look at is this idea of skilled labor, the idea of carpenters, construction workers. And I think there's a lot of disparity within this, or a lot of misinformation, especially like plumbers and electricians. Guys, a lot of these jobs it's a dying breed. So when you look at baby boomers, post World War II skill sets, you had a lot of people that were not going to college yet. College was still a very upper class, elite kind of thing. And during the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, you had a lot of people that were learning a skill or learning a trade. Again, those plumbers and electricians. Well, the problem is that those plumbers and electricians, obviously, they're starting to retire. They're getting into their 50s, their 60s, their 70s. And what we're finding in the United States is that there's not a new workforce moving into those jobs. So that's where we start to get into issues of shortage. I know, again, for example, when I was looking to fix my roof, trying to find a quality construction company was really, really difficult. And then after, literally, it took them 8 hours to do the job. I did the math on it. Cost them about $2,500 for the roofing shingles. So they made $7,500 in a day. Now there's five of them, and obviously they work for a company, so the company is going to take some of that money. But guys, you're looking at these skilled jobs. This skilled labor is something that as we move into the 21st century, people still need plumbers, people still need electricians, people still need masons and bricklayers and quality construction companies. So that's something, just when you think of the job market as a whole, obviously we need accountants and we need doctors and we need engineers and we need all of these jobs. But there's sometimes where people would look at, being the idea of a plumber and saying like, oh, I don't want to do that job. That job's not going to make me any money. False. That job's going to make you a lot of money. Or being an electrician that, for whatever reason, trade jobs are not coveted, or I guess, something that kids want to do, but it's really something that you should consider if the college track may not be for you. But if the college track is for you, then you also have those opportunities for those professional labor jobs in those medical fields, engineers, etc., both of which are going to make you good sums of money in the market. So now you get into those semi-skilled labor jobs, your like retail, waiters, waitresses, bartenders. Again, guys, you're going to find surplus. Anybody can really do those jobs. Same thing with unskilled labor. So you really want to make sure that when you're deciding to, what am I going to pursue in my life, you want to really kind of put yourself into that professional labor or skilled labor category, because you're going to have so much utility in the market that you're going to be able to give yourself a really good, high quality standard of life as a professional. Unfortunately, one of the things that we see in a negative in the market is there is differing wages, especially between men and women. So guys, if we think about throughout history, like 1950s, 1960s, you look at, women were stereotyped into certain jobs. I think of jobs like being secretaries, being nurses, being teachers, quote unquote, like women's jobs. And as women started transition into new jobs, they met all sorts of challenges. And the biggest challenge that women faced were the fact that they were, one, not being paid the same wage that men were being paid. And number two, just kind of the ability to get jobs that previously men kind of just, they were man jobs, which again just sounds kind of silly to think about, but that's the reality. So what ends up happening with the wages, in 2008 there was the Lilly Ledbetter Act, and what that did is that it made it illegal for companies to pay men one salary and women another salary for the same job. Now, unfortunately, what we have is that there's still this statistic out that men are making 20 cents more an hour than women make. Like, well, Donnelly, that doesn't make sense because of this Lilly Ledbetter Act. True, but the reason why that statistic is accurate is because men typically get higher paying jobs. So that's where that number comes from. So it's the idea that men are typically getting, the CFO, the CEO, these higher paying jobs, and women are not able to get those jobs yet. We look at that as being a glass ceiling, that women can see these jobs, unfortunately, that they're not being hired for them, and that in every way, shape, and form is discrimination. The other thing that we see that women have to deal with in the workforce is the idea of sexual harassment issues. So again, that because women were not viewed as being employment equals in the market, women were unfortunately subjected to all this ridiculousness of not getting paid enough or being sexually harassed in the office. And it's so just mentally wrong in every way, shape, and form. But as we start to see in the 21st century, we're starting to see improvements recognized to this. They're trying to get women more into executive roles, and they're trying to get women more into management roles. Obviously, there's still challenges behind that, but there is a concerted effort to try to break that glass ceiling and see more and more women rise to these powerful jobs because they should. These jobs should be able to go to women if they're deserving of the job. Just the same way as if a male should get the job if he's deserving of the job. But really, it's absurd, guys, in the 21st century that we're still discriminating jobs based upon gender. That's absurd. You guys even know in my household, you know that my wife makes twice as much as I do, and that's perfectly okay. It wasn't just women facing this discrimination either. What we find in the marketplace is that minorities were also facing this wage discrimination. Now, throughout history, what we find in the United States is that there were attempts, legislation passed by government to make sure that wage discrimination was not happening based upon race or gender. But the reality of what we found is that even though that these laws were on the books, minority candidates were still not given the same opportunity to get the same type of jobs as non-minority candidates were receiving. So as a result, minorities were basically forced into certain jobs, and unfortunately, these jobs were always they were paying the least amount in terms of wage. So unfortunately, what we found is that minority candidates, regardless of how deserving they were not actually able to get these high-paying jobs, and they were not able to earn the wages that they were deserving. So unfortunately, we find this socioeconomic cycle that minorities were not able to break this wage gap or this wage barrier. As a result, they were always kind of left in the same socioeconomic level as previous generations, and they were never able to break out of it, not because of desire or lack of determination or limited will or knowledge, but simply the fact that they, in the market, were not given the same opportunity to earn jobs as other members in the market. So what we found throughout history is that the government will step in, the government will intervene with legislation to make sure that the marketplace is fair for all potential workers, regardless of race or gender, and try to make the market as fair and equal as possible. So guys, this image I'm sure is not going to shock any of you, the fact that the highest paying jobs in the United States right now goes to people with college degrees. The highest paid jobs are people with graduate degrees, followed then by bachelor degrees, and then followed by high school degrees. Now, as we talked about, guys, obviously, if the college route is something that you're going to want to pursue, obviously, that I just really push for you guys to make sure that you're really deciding to say, this is a degree that's going to make me as marketable as possible and give me the most amount of utility in the market. But also, too, for those of you guys that are deciding college isn't for me, again, it's not a give up moment. It's all right, let's find a trade. Let's find something that still is going to give me a crazy amount of utility that is still going to give me the ability to get paid and make me useful in the market so that you can have that good quality of life. So again, looking at different jobs, obviously guys, the primary jobs, the natural resources, the farming, the forestry, fishing, mining, those things are going to be relatively constant, not a ton of change. The secondary jobs, your producers of goods, your welders, your plumbers, your construction workers, I feel like we've talked a lot about those jobs today and the demand that we're going to see in the market for these jobs coming up in the near future. But what's unique are these tertiary jobs, these white collar jobs that very much are changing. And it's kind of unique as the world is becoming more and more advanced. What we're looking at is people with new skill sets. So for example, the video that I would have showed you guys, and I'm still going to post it up on Google Classroom, but I'm not going to demand that you watch it, but I think it's an interesting watch, is that they talk about the fact that as we start to replace, so instead of individuals putting things together, you now have machines putting it together. Obviously that makes sense, but so now you'd think that person who was manufacturing that product now doesn't have a job, but it's simply now that the job has changed. Then instead of putting the job together or putting the product together, now you have to take care of the machine. You have to make sure that the diagnostics in the machine are working properly, or that everything is running smoothly, or that you have to do updates and checks. And that requires a new skill set. So what we find in the job market is that either these individuals that have been in this job for 10, 20, 30 years, they either now have to reacclimate themselves with this new skill set and go through new training, or this is going to be the perfect situation for this 21st century student that is graduating high school and graduating college with these new skill sets already in hand that these companies are going to desperately be looking for to hire. The difficult thing that we have with a lot of jobs in the United States is this new push for globalization in the market and the fact that companies now start to outsource their jobs. When we think about outsourcing jobs, especially internationally, the big reason why is the fact that people in different countries are going to get paid way less for producing the same product. So, guys, if you think about the lens through a CEO, a CFO, a company owner, whatever, the single most expensive input that they have is salary. So what happens is if they can cut their salary by half, okay, that's going to be way more money that that company is going to be able to make. So all of a sudden now, instead of having Americans that are demanding $14 an hour, you can outsource that job to the Philippines where someone's going to do the same thing for $7 an hour. If you look at it as a corporate structure, that's a win because you're going to be getting all of that money back by not having to pay out salary. So unfortunately, that's something that you see with outsourcing. I know I talked to my wife about that quite a bit. The fact that they have companies that she deals with in the Philippines, she manages that team in Costa Rica. Again, why outsource a team to Costa Rica? It's not because of a better skill set. It's simply because of the fact that they can get paid less money for still doing the same job. So that's a challenge that a lot of Americans face with the job market. But you hear recent presidents, especially President Trump, has really been talking about the idea of bringing back manufacturing jobs. So he really wants to limit the outsourcing that's happening and try to get these jobs back into the United States and have Americans working for American companies. So there is an effort to try to do this, but corporations, they look at their bottom line and they're going to make way more money by outsourcing. So another thing that we see with this is the idea of insourcing. And you're like, Donnelly, what's this idea of insourcing? Take, for example, Hyundai. Hyundai, the car manufacturer from Japan, what they'll do is that they're going to set up car manufacturing spots in the United States. They're going to produce their cars in the United States and then sell them in the United States. And they do that because they know that they're going to cut down on transportation costs and perhaps that they're going to make the cars more appealing and more available. So this happens both ways. Countries are outsourcing and insourcing all over the place. And that's just because we have such a globalized market. That's something that we just naturally see occur. Another cool thing that we see with globalization is the fact that you can work basically from anywhere in the world and be able to communicate with people. This big push with telecommunication, internet, Skype, webinars, making videos on iMovie and then posting it to YouTube and posting it to Google Classroom, it's really kind of changing the way that people can interact. And especially like right now during this pandemic, it's going to be really interesting to see that when we come out of this pandemic, how is that going to change the way that people choose to interact? I know personally for me, I hate this. I would much rather be in a classroom with you guys and having that interaction. But some companies may be able to say that it works. If you look at the pros, it gives you access to anyone, anywhere in the world. You can work from different places. Again, like my wife, she's on her Skype interviews with people from Rhode Island and Pennsylvania and Texas and wherever in the world that she needs to talk to people and has the ability to work from home. But I would argue definitely the biggest con is the fact that without that human interaction, guys, I've been in my little office bedroom thing making these videos for the last 30 days, and I am losing my marbles. So the fact that you can't interact with people, I really think that it's not going to change that much. At least I know it's not going to change for education. But it's something that you do have the ability to do, especially like when you guys get out of when you graduate from college, that perhaps you have the ability to work from home or that you have the ability to work from different places and be mobile. Perhaps that gives you the ability to travel and go see the world, which would be really awesome. Guys, that wraps up chapter 9. I know a lot of these ideas we've been talking quite a bit about throughout the year. I know with econ, I tend to overlap a little bit, especially with major ideas, that I really want you guys, just when you walk out of this class and you jump into the real world and you're making these decisions,
I just want you to have as much information as you possibly can so that at 17, 18, 19 years old, you're making the best decisions, or at least that you have information that, I always get frustrated. When I was your age, I didn't have an econ teacher doing this, and I got lucky with some decisions, but as I always talk with my wife, we always joke that when we were graduating high school, no one was having these conversations with us. So I really wanted you just to get some more information, to be informed about the market and decision-making processes, and so that you're making the best, most informed decisions that you could make. All right, guys. So you're gonna have you're gonna have work on Google Classroom again. You're gonna have some short answer questions based upon the video, and you're gonna have another RAO that's gonna be due on Friday. Besides that, you guys should be all good. As always, take care, be safe, be healthy. Hopefully, I'll see you guys soon. Bye.